what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Copy Blogger Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Tim Stoddart, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Ethan Brooks. What's up, Ethan?
What's going on, man?
You need to call out ahead of time for people watching the video that if there's a mess in my background, I swear to God, I'm not a slob. I went and bought a brand new computer so that I have my official podcast set up again. You probably noticed that the audio quality on my mic is a lot better as well. And so everything that you're seeing behind me dashed in a pile on my couch is just all of the shit that I had to take off my desk when we got this thing rolling.
Dude, we gotta thank the OG listeners for sticking with us through like the dark age of the podcast, man. We went through some
Right?
like a move across country, multiple mics, multiple cameras, different offices. Anybody who's still here, you're the best.
You remember the episode that was in my office in Nashville when my whole house was empty right before I moved?
Yeah.
And so I hung the blanket and the towel around my desk.
Yeah, where I believe we had to do like a disclaimer that said you had not been kidnapped by Al Qaeda, right?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
looked
It
like you
wasn't
were
some
about
kind
to.
of hostage video.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody who's still listening, yeah, things are shaping up. Hey, by the way, before we get into it, I'm curious, how's the course going? You bought Kevin Chen's course on podcast studios, and I'm keen to check it out as well at some point. How's it going?
Going great. I'm about halfway through. I'm one of those people that finishes books that I read and gets through the introduction of books, even though I know I don't need it. So I painfully got through like the introduction section, which is a whole bunch of stuff I kind of already knew, but I'm one of those people that just has to get the most out of everything. And plus, I got my binder that I take notes on everything that I consume basically. So I'm taking notes on it so that we can go through it in the pod and probably, hopefully, most likely next week, talk to Kevin about the course.
Right
So
on.
perfect timing. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, man. You ready to get into this one?
Yep.
Well, today's episode is going to be a fiery one. We are adding a little bit of gossip, a little bit of drama, and talking about why, for the 10,000th time, we are seeing evidence that you should never build your brand, your business on social media. So the big news this morning is, randomly, without warning, Elon Musk, and we have to blame Elon because he is the private majority owner of Twitter these days, but Elon Musk removed the ability to share, comment, or retweet any posts on Twitter that have a link to Substack on it. So there's actually a lot to unpack here. At first, it seems kind of like a grudge game because I don't know Elon Musk, but he does strike me as the kind of guy that holds really weird personal vendettas. And so it seems like him and Substack are in a little bit of a beef, I think they're calling it on the streets these days. But as I did a little bit more research on it, it seems to be tactical because Substack is also introducing new functionality, which looks to me like it's going to be competing directly with Twitter in the microblogging space. So how did you feel when you saw this news this morning? What was the first thing that you thought of?
Well, two things. First of all, I was shocked. I was shocked for two reasons. One, because Substack is a big player for people on Twitter. Like, pretty much all the biggest Substackers build their audiences on Twitter. So for those links to suddenly not work overnight, like I don't even think I ever thought of that as a possibility, right?
Yeah.
So it was big news. I was really surprised to see it, but I was also really surprised to see that Substack would even try to enter this space. Like I'm curious to hear some of your thoughts on that too. Because it just seems like a 10,000-pound gorilla to try and kill. Why? I don't know. What do you think of that? Why do you think they're trying to go after Twitter? Because think about what that really means, right? It's Substack is already known as one of the let's call them like 3 most viable newsletter platforms today. It used to be MailChimp. And I think by market share, MailChimp probably still has the bulk of new
Oh yeah.
creators signing up. But
Oh
what's
yeah.
really interesting is if you poll people in the newsletter space, like in terms of mind space, Substack is right up there, right? So they have kind of a category that they could own. I'm sure the revenue model is a tricky one to pull off because not a lot of people have paid newsletters. But if they're trying to change the revenue model, why why go in this direction? Because what you're really saying by launching a competitor Twitter is like, we're going to build an entire ecosystem around social media, right? Which to me is that's a very different project than running like a really great newsletter platform. So I was shocked to see it. To be honest, I'm still kind of absorbing it. And I've seen some interesting theories as to why this is really happening. Did you see people talking about Elon potentially acquiring Substack?
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So this is one thing Matt McGeary, which for anybody who doesn't know the name, he's been on the show. You should definitely go check him out. He's on Twitter. And he writes a newsletter about growing newsletters. He's the one who actually broke this news to me. He tweeted about it, and in the replies, somebody laid out this theory where they said, I basically my theory here is that Elon was in discussions with Substack to acquire them, and they couldn't come up with a price that made sense. And so this is sort of like a strong arm move. In one direction, maybe Substack is like pushing back against Twitter when they see that the platform is sort of on unstable ground, and then in the other direction, Elon's maybe hitting back and going like, okay, well, if that's how it's going to be, let's see if we can get the price of acquisition down. So it's really interesting. But very interesting to see like mom and dad fighting like this. Substack and
Yeah.
Twitter go hand in hand. I was very surprised. But what do you
There's
think?
so
Like,
much.
why? Yeah, from Substack's perspective, do you think it makes sense to even go into this space, or do you think like, hey, maybe this was inevitable because maybe Substack is sitting there thinking, well, Twitter can shut us off anytime they want. We need to go build our own relationship with the audience like that.
So many things you said there, which is important for people listening to understand. The first thing you said is, why would they go into this space? And the answer, I think, is because they don't make as much money as people think that they do. You said, and I was looking for the tweet before, somebody was, it was like 2 weeks ago. And I only know this because Nathan, who is the founder of ConvertKit, and Louis, who's the founder of a company called SparkLoop, which integrates with ConvertKit. So they're both very much in the ConvertKit space, where responding back and forth to this guy. I can't find it. We'll try to put it in the show notes. But basically, he put the Google Trends data for Substack, ConvertKit, and Beehive. And Substack, like by far, almost parabolically, had more search traffic than both ConvertKit and Beehive. But the business model for Substack is such that it's free unless you have a paid newsletter, and they only collect revenue on the paid members. So not, you don't have to pay to be a part of Substack. They collect money on people that pay to subscribe to their users' paid newsletters. And
Hmm.
so this was so interesting. I have a tweet here from Nathan, uh, kind of bringing it all together in this the stuff that we said, but this shocked me to see as well. So I guess as part of the news, Nathan said here, you know what, why don't I share my screen? So Nathan says, it's interesting to see that ConvertKit's revenue is 50% higher than Substacks. We also have about 20 times the active subscribers that they do. They just do such a good job dominating the press and narrative. And
Ooh,
okay,
that is interesting.
interesting, right? First off, I had no idea that there's two really important things to understand here. Substack's revenue is not that high because they only make money when their subscribers make money, which is another reason why just straight up monthly membership, access to use, and avoiding stuff that's free is another really good rule of thumb for people that are trying to create content. Next, we have about 20 times the active subscribers that they do. So what does that mean? It means that everybody who wants to start a blog, just like everybody that wants to start a podcast, right? They go to Substack, they create something, they write a first blog post, usually titled My First Post, and then they publish it and they never come back again. Whereas people that actually pay to use a piece of software, they're on the hook. They have skin in the game, right? And so that is another reason why I think it's like I said, it was shocking, but I think that's indicative to one of Substack's problems is that they have a lot of users, but not a lot of people use it. And then this part, they do such a good job of dominating the press and narrative. This is why I think Substack and Twitter go so hand in hand, because the people that grow Substacks always do so off the back of like political drama or social justice stuff, or like my opinion is really, really important, as opposed to the kind of educational content I think we are used to seeing on platforms like WordPress and on platforms like ConvertKit, stuff that's not necessarily so buzzworthy and drama worthy and, CNN and Fox News worthy, but stuff that is a little bit more uh, inducive to, like, let's call it collective society, right? So I know I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but I think
Well, let me
the
let me comment on
answer,
that for a second too,
yeah, please.
because I want to. Well, if you keep the screenshot up there, there's two things that stand out to me. One, which I'm really interested by, is I'm surprised. So Nathan's, let me make sure I'm understanding this right. He says it's interesting to see that ConvertKit's revenue is 50% higher than Substacks. We also have about 20x the active subscribers that they do. And I'm actually not sure what he's referring to as active subscribers. I think it's what you're saying, where it's like users, but I'm also wondering, could it be people that are reading ConvertKit newsletters? Like, do you think he's tallying up all the people on ConvertKit lists?
Oh, yeah, like subscribers to ConvertKit newsletters.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because like that seems like a huge difference. If it's like if I was to say we have 20 times the customers they do, but our revenue is 50% higher, I'd be like, that's kind of a weird. I would expect it to be much, much higher. So I'm not sure what he's actually measuring there in terms of active
True.
subscribers. It could be my default would have been what you said. I'm just noticing the disparity in those two numbers there. If they had 20x the user base, I kind of would have suspected much more in revenue. Um, but I've also like seen Nathan talk about it. I really respect the way that he runs ConvertKit, and I think there's well, there's more to unpack there. But like I don't necessarily think he would trade his position for like the notoriety that Substack has all the time.
Yeah.
Um, even if it came with maybe X% more money. It'd be interesting to ask him that. But like to me, he seems like he's very focused on building the kind of business that he wants to run, not necessarily one that just dominates the headlines all the time. So there's one thing I'll say though about Substack's ability to dominate the social sort of narrative. And this is something that I think that they've actually done really well, is they decided to become the platform for free speech. And I'm not sure if you and I have talked about this yet. I definitely mentioned it on some podcast somewhere. That is like the smartest thing that they've done. Specifically, one of their founders went on Rogan and talked about it. And now every time somebody talks about free speech on Joe Rogan's podcast, he mentions Substack. You can go in there and like I would say probably every other episode, he mentions Substack in some way, shape, or form, which is just millions of dollars in free advertising for them because they were willing to take a stance on something that was like really dicey. And it's going to be difficult, right, to be the platform of free speech. But I think that's one thing that they did that maybe set them up to now contend with Twitter in terms of creating a social network and not just a tool for publishing newsletters. But it's interesting, man. Like I think I can't really say why I think Substack became so popular so fast. It really does feel like it came out of 2020 when, everybody got locked up and all
Yeah.
of a sudden newsletters boomed. They were kind of like in the right spot at the right time. But very, very surprised to see this fallout. Now, to your bigger point, this is proof of why you got to own your audience. I think there's a ton to unpack there for people. So, what were your initial thoughts? Like, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong. The Bootstrapper, it's built on Substack, right?
Yeah.
So you're dealing with this right now.
Well, not really, because I don't promote that on Twitter. I only send people to the Bootstrapper who sign up for my free newsletter at timstods.com. But I mean, look, there's still a bigger uh there's a higher level to look at this from. And man, there's so much stuff. This story is like a microcosm of all the things that we deal with as creators and all the decisions we have to make, right? So Substack has positioned itself as the harbinger of free speech. But you know who else did that? Twitter. And what
Yeah, and
happened with Twitter?
Mastodon and yeah.
Yeah. And so now they just banned an entire network of communication on their platform in the name of quote unquote free speech, right? And so it's not a political statement by any means. It's really more so the risk you're taking when you sign up to things based on the benefits that they're promising you, as opposed to the fact that like they just offer a good product that you have to pay for.
Yeah, that's a great point, and we should probably pause briefly to just caveat this entire conversation with saying, has Twitter come out and said anything about this? Because there's two possibilities here. One possibility is that this is fake news, and we need to, I think, just do a quick pulse check to make sure it's actually true. Like, are you able to maybe if you just grab one of the Bootstrapper links right now, try and post it and see if
Um,
there's anything. And the second
well, I have two
possibility is that
things.
it's a technical issue, right? So who knows what it is? But in a company like Twitter that is currently in a process of moving fast and breaking things, like this was big enough news and surprising enough that I would actually accept the explanation that like, oh, this was just a technical failure, like on our rollout, because Twitter just updated their API. Did you see that? What was it? Was it Hype Fury was not booted and another one was? Did you see this?
No,
Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 second to
brutal.
pull up this link, but like a really famous one of these Twitter platforms that you can use to post got kicked
While you're
off.
pulling that up, let me yeah, let me try my best to put my journalistic hat on to make sure we're not just spewing. So TheVerge.com, in an article published yesterday, Twitter now disables likes, replies, and retweets if a tweet has Substack links. Substack's founders responded to the change by calling it a reminder of why writers deserve a model that puts them in charge, which is also painfully ironic, considering that Substack is sort of in the same arena as what Twitter is. However, I do think that the Substack guys like mean well and that their intentions are pure. It's just inevitable that something like this happens when you have founder money and when you put content on there for free. So this is an article from The Verge. We'll put this. I just read you the headline. Also, Hamish McKenzie, who is one of the founders, he was actually on my podcast. He's a really cool guy. This was on April 5th. So 2 days ago. Today, we're announcing Substack Notes. Notes lets writers publish short form posts and recommend almost anything: quotes, links, images, and comments. It's coming soon and it will look like this. So there's a screenshot to it. And I mean, it's Twitter. Basically, it's microblogging. Like you're just posting little tiny notes on a feed that looks pretty damn similar to Twitter. I mean, there's other functionality where you can just subscribe to somebody's actual Substack right in there. But I mean, come on, it's even got the heart, the little quote image, and the retweet image. I guess they got around copyright by making it a circle as opposed to like a rectangle, right? But it's exactly Twitter. And then the last little source I have is from Hamish. Oh, no, no. This is from Substack's official Twitter handle. This was posted on April 6th at 1:29 p.m. I think that's Eastern time. I'm not sure. We're investigating reports that Twitter embeds and authentication no longer work on Substack. We're actively trying to resolve this and will share updates as additional information becomes available. So it's
So
both ways.
yeah. So this is interesting. And this actually potentially points to more of a technical problem than a political one.
Oh, because if an API is killed, then it's
Yeah.
killed on both sides.
Yep. And here's something else that happened recently, which is there's a really good explainer on this. I won't read the entire thing, but Tweet Hunter,
Mm.
they had something similar happen the other day. This was 2 days ago. Tweet Hunter basically, I'm just gonna summarize. Tweet Hunter basically got shut down. You couldn't use it to access Twitter. The reason I knew about this is because Hype Fury's team jumped on it, and they sent tweets out all over the place, being like, "Switching from Tweet Hunter, like check us out."
I love it.
Yeah, I think Tweet
Dirty.
Hunter's founder or somebody was on Twitter basically saying like, I can't believe they capitalized on this. And I was like, yeah, but I
You
can. Like
can.
I can
Yeah.
believe it. I think when the opportunity strikes, gotta get in there. But Tweet Hunter is now back online, right? So it was a temporary outage, and I think it was related to this API change. So let me just read something real quick. This is from Yannick Vase, who I guess does marketing and growth. And I think he's at Hype Fury. Let's see here. Yeah, co-founder, CMO of Hype Fury. So he wrote this piece. He said, here's why Hype Fury didn't get banned by Twitter. Back in January 23, out of the blue, Twitter banned all third-party Twitter clients, TweetDeck competitors. They clearly violated the terms of service, but those weren't really enforced for years. On February 9th, Twitter announced new API plans. We paid attention because we knew this would impact Hype Fury. There's a saying in business, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. We initially thought that the basic API tier would be enough for Hype Fury, but once the dust settled, we realized the basic tier would be worse than the elevated tier we are on now. There was already chatter in the market. The small Twitter tools would be impacted. It only meant one thing. We had to find out and plan to move to the $42,000 per month enterprise API plan if needed. So it sounds like when some of these other Twitter tools were knocked off, it was because they just hadn't been paying attention to these updates regarding the API, or maybe they didn't have the plan in place or something like that. But it does seem like a temporary outage and not necessarily like, hey, we're going to shut you down because you're a competitor. The other thing I'll say, I want to say this to be fair to Musk, because it would be easy to categorize this as like a move of him just trying to shut down a competitor. But if you look at Substack's new product, like you could make the case that Twitter went there first with their longer tweet posts. Like Twitter, it's actually not as surprising to see Substack like allow for microblogging because they're kind of a blogging platform in the first place. And Twitter has had this longer post available that kind of makes them more of a competitor with platforms like Substack. So I'm not even sure. Like I could very easily believe there is no political bad blood between these two, and it's like a technical problem. So we'll caveat it that way. But regardless, it is a perfect indication of why you really need to be building. Even if you build on other platforms, it all needs to funnel back to something that you own. And we talked about this with one of the other Substack updates. What was it? I forget what we were talking
With
about.
the app.
Yeah, the app. And we weren't quite sure if you could still access your list from the app. It turns out you could. But regardless, the point of all these updates is always like, you got to be building a list somewhere that you own. So it's fine to build on these platforms, but yeah,
Well,
it
I
can't be
like
the only
this.
thing.
I think it is important that we try to take the other side of the argument, right? Because why, if the risks are, if they repeat themselves over and over again, like this story repeats itself over and over again. You build your brand on a third party platform, and then it's like that South Park meme where he's investing his money in the bank account and it's like,
It's gone.
and it's gone. you know,
What do you mean
like,
it's gone?
yeah,
This seat is for
if this
customers
happens over
only.
and yeah, that's right. But if this happens over and over again, then why do people keep doing it? And the answer is because of the network effect. Like Substack, the first thing they did, even before they created any products, was create like a recommendation tool where you get a benefit of being part of the Substack network just by being part of the Substack network. Like you just you grow because you're in the thing. And I've seen firsthand, I mean, I know we don't talk about it much, but my little secret blog, the blank page that I write in every day, that's on Substack. I thought that would be a perfect Substack because I had no intentions of growing it or doing anything. It was basically just an easy place for me to write and clear my head in the morning. And I have 1,900 subscribers on it, and I've done nothing. I've posted 2 articles. One was that Jordan Peterson article that we talked about, and when my son was born, I made a little bit of a post. And so those are the only shares I've ever put for that thing. And over the course of the last year and a half, 1,900 subscribers. I mean, like just through the organic network effect of being a part of Substack, that's serious. And so that is a reason to join. It's just you're dancing with the devil.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, and I'm not sure I don't even know if I have a good answer for this, but what are we talking about when we talk about building on a platform that you own? What we're really saying is you need to be able to take those emails and put them somewhere that's not going to disappear. So it's like, it's fine to build on Substack. It's fine to build on like a Beehive. You could use any platform you want. But at the end of the day, all of your content ideally should be funneling people towards your email list, and then you should be taking their email addresses and storing them somewhere where they're not going to disappear, right? So if Substack disappeared tomorrow and you don't have your lists locally, how are you going to get it, right? You had this problem with the platform that shall not be named, the community platform that shall not be named. Um, so here's the thing that I'm
So
not sure I have a
funny.
good answer for. Where do you store the list locally? Do you do this? Do you download like local versions of your mailing list yet?
No, and I should. I have a little bit of a better answer actually. I think you own something when you pay for it. So another thing that Substack does is you're on Substack server. So that's why when you create a Substack account, you're on ethansblog.substack.com. So I can't stand that because it just bothers me because I like the brand, right? And so I redirected my domain. And that's why if you go to the bootstrapper.io or you go to the blankpage.io, but I like I don't own that server. Substack owns the server. And so if their server gets hacked, or it's not gonna happen that their server is gonna get hacked. I'm just saying that like the possibilities arise that something happens internally within their company server that there's nothing I can do about.
Yeah.
Whereas I own my WordPress sites and I own them because I own the domain, which I bought. I own the server space, which I pay for. And kind of even more, yeah, I guess technically you rent server space, but it's a little bit different because I have a dedicated server. So like it is kind of my server that I can turn on and off and put things on it and take things off of it if I want to. And I own my email list because I pay for the ESP. Like they owe me, like I am paying them. So they owe me as
Yeah.
opposed to Substack where they don't owe me anything. They can do whatever they want with their company. And when that happens, everybody's always up in arms, like, oh, I can't believe they did this. I can't believe Elon Musk banned Substack or whatever happened from being able to post on Twitter. And they're shit out of luck. And they should be because they never had control in the first place. And people just refuse to accept that.
Yeah. You know who was like the most extreme example of this in the way that we're sort of advocating? Do you know Sean West?
Oh,
He was a creator. He's still out there. I'm not sure if he's still running the same brand or not, but super interesting guy. He kind of got his start as an illustrator. He would illustrate logos, and then at one point he created a course for like hand lettering and sold something like $100,000 worth of the course in a day. And that sort of launched his business as a creator, somebody teaching people how to be a business owner in the creator space. I used to pay a lot of attention to his work. This was
you have long
years
hair.
ago now. Yeah. Yeah. Got the Jesus look. Um, really interesting guy.
That is a Jesus look if I ever seen one, man. That is like that's spot on.
Yeah. he's really impressive because not only does he do good work and he has a very high bar for excellence, but he's also very methodical in terms of like how he builds his business. So when he had that success with the course, he started a podcast, started an entire business around it, and was, I mean, quite successful for a long time. I think at some point he dialed the business back, but he owned everything. Like they bought the hardware. He had a closet with a server in it that he would
Wow.
store his videos and podcasts on for exactly this reason. Like he's just like, and here's the other really impressive thing about him is that he's one of these people who is completely debt free. He won't buy anything on credit. Like him and his wife bought their house in cash and cars, everything. So when I say that he owned the server, like, he shelled out for these things up front. And I'm not sure if he ever did a breakdown on exactly what it cost to do that. But there's a reason that so many of us don't own a server, right? In our pantry. It's expensive. It's difficult to set up. And so you are kind of always balancing like where's the risk, where's the reward in terms of being able to set up quickly versus like potentially losing everything. And I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying in terms of like when you have the paid plan, you definitely have a little bit more leverage. And then for me, this is making me think I need a better plan in place for downloading and keeping copies of email lists because it really should just be something that happens automatically or as part of your like weekly routine. But I've never actually dealt with that. And the reality is, like you said, if you're a paying customer for a lot of these platforms, you'll probably never deal with an issue, right? Like in terms of getting access to your list. But every once in a while, something happens and that volcano goes off. And it's like, if that's your entire business, you're screwed. So it's a good eye opener. It's, I hope Substack comes back online here in a minute. But it's a good reminder. Every once in a while, we have these like little forest fires of the creator space, and it teaches people again how, what the fundamentals are. Can I show you the extreme polar opposite of what we're talking about? You're going to get a kick out of this.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Here, share your screen, and then I'm going to send you a tweet. I'm going to send you a tweet. I want you to open it because I want to see your face when you open this.
Are you sending it to me in the Zoom chat?
Yeah. Read it out loud.
Okay.
Well, go
Julie.
back. So this is Chris
Oh,
Orzakowski. He's been on the show. He tweeted this recently and he said, I've seen some wild shit on this app. What is it? But this trumps it all. And then he linked off to this tweet. Hold on a second. Which is now.
yeah. Like I said, I just bought this new computer, and so when I clicked on this link, it opened up whatever Microsoft's browser is. I didn't get all the stuff sorted out yet, so here we
Oh,
go.
got it. Okay.
I've deleted my email. Why would anybody do this? You know who else deleted their email list? Paul. Oh, what's his name? Paul Jarvis. You ever read Paul
What?
Jarvis? Yeah, he had
Yeah.
like 40,000 people on his list, and he was just like, I don't want to have a personal brand anymore. And he just deleted the whole thing.
So
So,
this is a tweet from a creator named Julie Ahrens, Ahrens.
yeah.
And I got to give it to her because this is like the ballsiest thing I think I've ever seen a creator do. I'm not sure I agree with it, but here's what she said. She said, I've deleted my email list. Here's 3 reasons why I would do it again. 0 regrets. And then
That's so stupid.
okay, well, here's the thing. I think there's 2 sides to this. I'll play devil's advocate. I agree with you. I think this is the kind of thing I could have seen myself doing at 21 because I'm like, for people listening, well, I'll just read her thread and then I'll tell you why I relate to this. Okay, quote, "You'll regret this, Julie," she said, right? So she's very aware that people don't think this is a good idea. And she says, "Really? I mean, I know that what I did looks like the most stupid move ever, but before you call me crazy, hold on a sec. Things people told me why I should keep my email list. Here's a few. Emails are the best way to sell to your audience. People don't trust short form content only. What if Twitter shuts down your account?" And you know what? That's bullshit because it comes from a place of fear. Are you afraid of Twitter shutting you down, not being seen as an authority, your audience forgetting about you? Personally, I'm not, which made this decision a no-brainer for me. So I turned the tables. You, and then there's kind of like a quote. You need an email list so that you're seen as an authority. And then she put like an X in front of it. And then asked, what if I don't? What if there are other ways to nurture my audience that feel more like me? Okay, here are the 3 reasons why I did the unthinkable. 1, it feels right. Sending out a whole freaking dictionary every week, literally regurgitating what I've said in my threads. Hell no from me, mainly because I'm not here to repeat the same thing over and over, which is exhausting. 2, I want my emails to have purpose, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here because it's kind of a lengthy thread.
It's a pretty long thread.
Yeah, but I want my emails to have purpose. When I create content, there's always an intention behind it. But her emails basically didn't carry that intention so far. And then 3, I have different plans. I'll be creating a new email list in the future, different place, different time, because I want them to truly mean something. Okay, so a couple of things to break down here. 1, this literally almost gave me a stroke.
Madness.
But also got to respect the move. Here's why. I get this. I get this feeling of being like, oh, everyone says you got to do this. And you feel like maybe you're spread in 1,000 directions. And then there's some party that's like, I'm just going to go all in on the thing that I'm already good at. Like Mr. Beast does this. Mr. Beast, did you hear him on Joe Rogan? And, you know, Mr. Beast is definitely, there aren't too many people like him, but on Joe Rogan, I think it was Rogan was like, so you ever think about like moving to other platforms like Twitter and stuff like that? And he's like, why? He's like, I'm all in on YouTube. And I see some of the fingerprints of that on this, where it's like, no, yeah, I get the whole email list thing, but I'm only going to be on Twitter. Like I'm going to be Twitter's biggest creator. You're going to know my name. If that's what she's going for, I don't have the stomach for it, but I respect it. But oh my God, dude. The madness. Yeah.
I'm stressed. I'm stressed out even thinking about this. Like, I want to show her what her life could be like 5 years from now that she's not going to know. I think Mr. Beast isn't the best example because when Mr. Beast launched Mr. Beast Burgers, how did he do that? Like he still did that through press. Well, maybe not an email list. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I hear what you're saying. It is cool to go in all in on one thing, but this is like going all in on Big Macs. You know, it's like everybody else is eating healthy and everybody's telling me all the benefits of eating healthy. And you know what? I don't care what people tell me to do. I'm going to do my own thing and I'm just only going to eat Big Macs. You know, it's like, cool. You are committed to something and good on you for having like that kind of discipline and that kind of fortitude to stick it out. But, oh, Julie, I feel for you. You're going to regret this one.
We'll see.
It's
We'll
funny,
see.
though.
I
I
think
love how Chris says. I've seen some wild shit on this app, but this trumps it all.
yeah, I think I don't know. And here's the other thing I'll say is when she said she said I deleted my email list, which I think a lot of people are interpreting as like I got rid of all the emails on the list. I think it's also possible it's like maybe it's just like I stopped sending a newsletter, you know? So maybe she still got them. If I don't know, man, I've done this kind of thing, especially when I was young. I'm not sure how old Julie is, but like when I was young, I did so much stuff that was just, it was designed to give me direction and like clarity of purpose, which I think is one of the harder things when you're still kind of figuring out what your niche is going to be, right? And this is the hardest thing. You know, people ask about this a lot when I talk about newsletters or when we talk about kind of like the publishing game in general. Like one of the biggest questions is just how do you figure out what your niche should be? And unfortunately, I think the most realistic advice is still just not that helpful, which is for me, I tried a lot until something finally hit. And it's like, it's just not helpful. It's not helpful advice, but that is the truth of it. And it's like what I tell people now is try a lot because you'll know when the thing hits. It's not that helpful, but everybody who's been through it once knows that that's the truth, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I have this weird thing that pops in my head a lot about how kids don't listen to their dads. even though like their dad is always right because he's been there. And then it's like a terrible, cruel joke that the universe plays on you as you get older and you have a son, and you're like, you're not going to listen to a word I say. And like, you don't know this, but I'm right. And you're just too dumb to know that you're right. And so, like, good luck figuring it out so that when you get older, like, the universe will torture you with this same exact awful cyclical life lesson. So, yeah. All right. Well, let me wrap this thing up on your note then. Seeing that there's so many options, we both know Tyler from Beehive. You know, they're killing it. Beehive is an awesome platform. Obviously, we know Nathan. I'm been like pretty outspoken about WordPress even all these years later. There's all these what's it called, like catastrophizing the fact that WordPress is dying, but I think it's still like 70% of the websites on the internet are on WordPress, something absurd like that. So knowing what we know now, after this bit of conversation, if you had to start all over and you said, you know what, I'm going to go in on this, like, what would be your first move? How would you do it?
Can I give two answers?
Totally, there's no right answer.
If okay, so here's how, and I am in this position right now. So I'll talk about what I would do if I knew nothing about tech, and I would, and then what I am doing. If I knew nothing, I would start either a Substack or a Beehive, and I would just pick one. It doesn't really matter which
I would
one.
too.
Yeah, Substack will be free for you. So if you don't want to pay up front, like actually, it's been a while since I've reviewed Tyler's pricing plan, but I would pick either. They're both great platforms. And if you're just starting and you don't have any traction, you don't know enough to start like paying money for tools yet. So I'd probably go Substack and just start writing. And then I would publish the ideas from my newsletter on Twitter every day. That's what I would do. That's how I'd build the list. What I am doing, and this is like sort of in progress right now because I just recently left Trends. So I'm down to sort of the podcast, my day job at Hampton, and then whatever publishing I want to do for myself on the side. My blog is built on WordPress. The newsletter is going to be on Beehive. I've got an account there. I'm currently using HubSpot as the form collector for email addresses, and it's so good. I just don't like their email builder. But the forms integrates it really, really well. I'm keen to see how Beehives work, but it's going to be WordPress for the blog, Beehive for the newsletter, and then I'm going to publish on Twitter. That's it.
Yeah. What
What
a
would you do?
what a twisted way to end the show, where I would say, like, just start a Substack. Like,
Man, it's a good thing our titles like we have a chance to rewrite the title after we record the episode, because I'm pretty sure the first title we came up with was like Elon blows up Substack. 10 more reasons not to publish on Substack. Advice at the end of
well,
the day: get yourself a Substack.
there is such thing as the technical know-how. Like, one of the biggest things that holds people up is they just feel like they have to get it right. You
Right.
know, I can't tell you how many times I've seen like, but I need to design my website. And it's like, you really don't.
Yep.
You really don't. So if you're open to it, so okay, actually, let me revisit my offer. If you're open to putting in the slightest bit of effort, and I mean the slightest bit of effort, do this. Call GoDaddy on the phone. Tell them I don't know anything I'm doing, and I'm going to ask a million questions, and I'm going to take up your time. One thing about GoDaddy, as bad as they are in a lot of different ways, they have built a great customer service department. And I think they've been very strategic about it. So call GoDaddy and tell them I need a WordPress install, and I need to launch a WordPress site, and I need to buy a domain, and just sit on the phone with them until all of a sudden they do it for you. And they will. They really, really will. Just use the 2023 theme. So WordPress publishes a bunch of free themes every year, and like the standard one that comes with websites is usually the name of the year. So it'll be a 2023 theme, and just stay on the phone with them and be like, okay, I need a domain, I need to set up a hosting account, and I need to put together a WordPress install. And then they'll do it. And now you got $12 a month for your hosting, and you have your own website. You can do all of that. Or if you just have an idea and you want to get started, go to substack.com and literally just click the create button. But here's like the downside of it
Yeah.
is most people don't stick with Substack because there's something about like building the thing that I think really, really, really matters. So there's pros and cons. Another one of the pros of Substack is the actual writing experience is very, very good. Just the back end of it is so minimalist and it's so smooth. I can't even tell you what it is about it. Like it's
Yeah.
really enjoyable to write in that back end platform. So they did that well. So oh man, even just
I think
rambling through this shit for the last 3 minutes, like I didn't even give an answer, but
no,
those
you
would
gave
be
a
my
good
two
answer.
answers.
You gave a good answer. I think the advice was solid, which is like, yeah, just call somebody and have them install a website for you and publish your articles there and use something like Substack or Beehive for the newsletter. Can I tell you something I
Yeah.
think about Substack? I love their product so much. I think I don't know anything about, you know, like how much cash they're burning or what their revenue really is, but it seems just from the public discourse that that's probably the thing they're trying to figure out most. Um, I really think the platform is going to make it in the long term, though, just
I
because
do too.
the user experience is so good. They have the best gated, um, like newsletter capture form that I've seen anywhere. So for people who go to like a Substack page and you start to scroll, if you're not a subscriber, the email capture pops up, and that's not necessarily new, but what is new is just the UX around it. So the
Yeah.
screen dims just a little bit. You can still actually read the full newsletter as you scroll. So it's not like that frustrating experience as a reader where you get to a page and it's like, oh, you got to have to sign up, sign in, or give us money. Like you can choose to read through this thing if you want to. I'm so much more likely to sign up. I've actually been looking all over the place just to find some sort of plugin for WordPress that could mimic Substack's gate.
It's not
Um,
there.
it's not there.
It's
It's
so
such a
funny
good,
that you're bringing this up because so the original blank page was on WordPress or excuse me, the original Bootstrapper was on WordPress and then I used MemberPress. But since you're on WordPress, the process of telling WordPress where the gate is because you want them to read a little bit of the article and then all of a sudden it stops so that they say, "Oh, I want to keep going." And then, they click the button and they buy it. It was just so difficult. Every single article you hit, you had to go through this whole arduous process and like tell it exactly where to go. And then even when you did, the gate box, let's call it, the CTA, you had to manually put in that content every single time. And it didn't do that blur thing where as you go down, it gets a little bit more gradient and a little bit more gradient until all of a sudden the CTA is there. And it was that one thing alone that made me go like, ugh, I don't want to do this on WordPress. I'm just going to do this on Substack because it's so much easier to convert free subscribers to paid subscribers just through that call to action and through that
yeah,
UX. It makes such a difference. And they just nailed it with that. Totally.
that's awesome. Speaking of, wait, actually, I'm not sure if they're on Substack. Let me check something real quick. I want to do a couple of quick call outs for some cool creators as we wrap this up. And last thing I just want to drive home is a point you said about how the tech doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I'm not sure if we've gone through these numbers yet on the show, but I've interviewed people like Tyler Denk, who was the first technical hire at Morning Brew. He was employee number one at Morning Brew, and he built their entire like tech ecosystem early on. I've also talked to like
It's cool.
technical leads at a whole bunch of other newsletter companies. The technology you use does not matter until you're sending about 100,000 emails a day. Anything under that, just go to Beehive, go to Substack, go to MailChimp, whatever you want, whatever's easiest and most like works for your budget. All right, real quick, two quick shout outs. I want to shout out one project. This is Ivy Zoo, IVYXU. She's a Trends member and we've been connected for a long time. And she's on Beehive. Okay. So she started a newsletter called Prequel, which is for parents who are like want to be involved in their kids' education. It's growing like crazy, man. She texted me on to 29th with a chart of their growth. And like basically between the 13th and the 29th, she added 10,000 readers to this newsletter. And then I forwarded her to the editor of Trends. And by the time I was able to forward that email, like say 2 days went by, and she texted another photo and they'd added another 5,000 readers at that point. Like this is one of the fastest growing newsletters I think I've ever seen. And she says and we're going to talk more about exactly how she's doing this, but she says like largely because of Spark Loop. So there's, I think to be honest, they're early enough that like Spark Loop might be a factor here. This is definitely like an audience thing too, though. Like her audience is obviously really passionate about what they're publishing, because I've never seen a newsletter grow this fast. So there's something they're tapping into there. But congratulations to Ivy. You can go check her out, IVYXVINE on Twitter. And then the newsletter is prequel.beehive.com. And then one other thing I wanted to just shout out real quick. Maybe we could talk about this next week. Another cool writing adjacent project. You're going to like this one. Oh, I sent it to you. It's where's my notes? MakeMyShitBetter.com.
Oh yeah, you did send that to me.
This is it's an AI project that's used to rewrite cold emails. And you can send a quick email to bro@makemyshitbetter.com and it automatically rewrites it. Just know though that it automatically posts the original and the rewritten version on their homepage. So use that, do with that information what you will. But this is a project from a friend of mine, and I thought it was hilarious when I saw it. So lots of cool stuff going on there. All right, that's it. We'll include notes to all this stuff in the show notes. We'll link off to some of the tweets that we mentioned, the projects, the news, everything like that. Thank you, everybody, for checking in. Be sure to check out copybloggerpod.com. And Tim, is there anything you want to tell the good people before we let them go for the week?
Nope. I'm just so happy to be back on my microphone and my webcam. I feel like a real podcaster again. We're doing this.
Yeah. Taking it up to level 11. All right, man. Good to see you. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
See you next week.